Well, guess what? We're live. We are live, and it is 12:15. Thank you for your patience. Got a little behind the old eight ball this afternoon, and it was a consumer choice. A consumer choice. So I wanted to slow cook some ribs today on the electric smoker. Thank God for the electric smoker. And I went to the local meat market, right? And I like to buy from those guys. They're good. I like their product. And I went there, and the only ribs that a lot of their stuff is like fresh and a little loose, but not the ribs. The ribs came from Swift, and ever since the Chinese bought Smithfield, I've not been down with the huge factory farm, uh, whatever, right? So I had the Blitz, and HEB actually has better ribs. It's their brand. They're quote unquote natural, which is about as close as you can get to organic without it being specifically organic. So I had to go all the way back over across town, get those ribs, bring them back, and then put them in. I know it's first world problems, but it could have been more convenient for me to just get those ribs. So fuck it, ribs are ribs, right? But I didn't, and that's kind of what today's show is about. It's kind of what today's show is about. We have to make choices. Whether or not those choices manifest in the grand scheme of things, well, that's TBD, right? But we have to make choices. And the choices we make now, I think, are critical. They're critical choices. And this show is kind of a public declaration about a choice that I'm making. And the choice that I'm making is that I am all in against the Harris-Walz regime. I'm all in. It is not, by the way, an endorsement of Trump. There are things the things that Trump did that at the end of the day, I'm not completely down with. Was he compromised? Yes. Did he have to go through living hell? Yes. All those things are true. But there are things that he did at the end of his term that I didn't like. He let the J6ers rot in jail. I'm sorry. Right? He had the power to pardon them all, and he didn't. Maybe he'll pardon when he gets back in. I don't know, but he could have done that, and he should have done that. And instead, he pardoned Jonathan Pollard, and he pardoned Jared Kushner's father. And he pardoned a bunch of rappers and some other real criminals, like real criminal types. Like that's what you do in your last days. I'm sorry, right? And still, at the end of the day, I'll take that guy over what I saw. And you can say, well, that's what they want you to do. That's what they want you to do. They want you to be caught up in this polarity of good versus evil, right versus. I don't care. I don't care about the metaphysical dialectic, right? I just don't care about it. I know what those people are capable of. I know what they're capable of, and I do not want it. And if you were at least remotely clear and sane, you would agree upon it. And Trump doesn't even have to earn. I'll take my chances with Trump, and the infatuation and love with Israel, right? I'll take my chances with him because he's chaotic, and he actually seems like there's this kind of interesting thing that's going on with Trump. I don't know if you've seen this. He seems to be getting older, right? Like when he was on with Theo Vaughn, it wasn't like he revealed a completely human side, but he revealed more of a human side than he ever had before. So as you get older, you kind of I don't want to use the word get softer, but you realize what's important, and you begin to not sweat the small stuff. And I feel whether it's through weariness, fatigue, whatever happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, the energy around Trump is different. And there's a good side to it, and there's a not so good side to it. The good side to it is that if you're really paying attention, he feels more human than he's ever felt before. And again, I'm not saying that human side is going to translate into everything we want from the president. They can't do that anymore. The downside is the energy. While he feels a bit more contemplative and perhaps more appreciative of what he has, which is always good, there is kind of an energy gap between Trump and Harris. That part is not so good. So this is not an ringing endorsement of Trump. I'll take my chances with him. I'll take my chances with the love affair with Israel. Not real happy about it, right? I know there's a lot of people on the Trump side, the deep Trump side, Q level, who think Trump is going to get Israel. Right? Mike Lee makes a very compelling case about all the things that he's had to go through to get here. And if you're going to get Israel, you're not going to go through the front door. Okay, that's possible. That's very possible. I'm not holding out hope for it. But if it does happen, well, hello, Dolly. So this is more about the outright rejection of what we saw over the last 4 days. Now, to be clear, the Biden administration is not the same as the Harris administration. And I want to get into some differentiation around that. Not that Biden's better. Okay. The Biden administration, is an old East Coast Delaware corporate grift. That's where they come from. And Joe Biden, wherever his palm was going to be greased, that's where he would make the deals. He was very good at he's got Sun in the 12th house. He's very good at being a backroom deal maker. That is what Biden has always done. Just look at his son, Ukraine, Burisma. That's the headline material right there. They are not part of the Obama, Clinton, Bush crime syndicate. They're not. Do they share business ties with them? Of course they do. But they are not part of that crime syndicate. And let's be honest and fair about this. This is a crime syndicate. And it'll be interesting to see the overlap of the Bush, Obama, Clinton crime syndicate as it interfaces with Harris, who is part of a different group. Now remember, these things overlap. They're kind of Venn diagrams, right? Or Vesica Pisces. Right? There's one side you've got the Harris camp, and the other side you got the other three, and they kind of meet in the center. The Harris camp is Californian. And the Harris camp is connected to Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, and originally Dianne Feinstein, when she was alive, Willie Brown, and a whole host of other politicians you don't know about and probably have never heard of. That's where she comes from. She comes from this California political machine. Jerry Brown tangentially connected to that regime. And that regime has money connections with Silicon Valley, but really the bulk of their money connections comes from San Francisco real estate and drugs. So if you haven't followed some of Yoichi Shimatsu's work, I talked about the Tim Waltz stuff and the money laundering coming from Minnesota, and I put links on Twitter. I put it on both Rumble, FARcast, and Locals. You should go watch my local show. I'm sorry, my Rumble show. Go watch the Rumble show. I talk about it. I get into it. I break it down. It's a must watch to understand the involvement of Tim Waltz with a Chinese counterfeit scheme. Okay, very important. Tim Waltz and Kamala Harris have China in common. That's the other part of the equation, right? The California equation is China. And when they decided to rebuild the Bay Bridge in California, who did they hire? They hired a Chinese construction company. Now, I'm sure China has some good projects, especially when their own people are involved in their place, right? But they didn't say, hey, let's get an American construction company. No, they went with the Chinese construction company to build the Bay Bridge. And who oversaw that? Arnold Schwarzenegger, another globalist, another homo globalist. Anyway, so the California political machine is connected to Harris. Now, if you follow this trail, when all the falderall and the instant endorsement of Harris came from the Biden family, the Obamas were silent. They were silent. They were not endorsing Kamala. And people were asking why. Why were they not endorsing her? Why didn't they just come right out and slobber all over Kali Ma? Well, first of all, they're part of a different group. Now remember, they do business together. They're part of a different group. So the Obama group and the Bush group and the Clinton group basically have like three areas that they're associated with. So the Obama group is mostly associated with Chicago, right? When Rahm Emanuel left the Obama White House, where did he go? He went to Chicago. Obama was there. He was a community activist and organizer in Chicago. Hillary Clinton wrote her thesis in college on Saul Alinsky and wrote Saul Alinsky. Now, there's some debate as to whether or not Hillary Clinton and Alinsky ever met, but clearly she was deeply influenced by him. And Hillary Clinton comes from the Chicago area. So there's a little bit of an overlap, right, with Obama and Clinton. You've got the Houston area for the Bushes and Halliburton, all right, an oil company. And then, of course, with Clinton, you have Little Rock, Arkansas, and its outposts, including Bentonville, where Walmart was established and becomes the hugest recipient of all the deals that the Clintons made with China during their administration. So they all have China in common. They all have China in common. But there is a different kind of locality. And when I watched the Obamas at the convention, can those people muster any other emotion besides quiet rage and fake indignation? I mean, it's like enough already. I'm like, aren't we over this? Like, aren't we over? This is the question you have to ask yourselves. Are you over this? Are you tired of being pushed around and bullied and talked down to and made to feel like your own existence should be questioned. And it might be better that once you question your existence, you get to a point where you feel like you don't even deserve to be here. Like that, this is the message. This is the psychological message that they were importing to the rest of the world. Now, there was an interesting moment where Michelle Obama was talking about black jobs. Everybody thought she was talking about Trump. She was actually talking about Kamala Harris. She was making the dig about the black job and she getting the black job. That's another layer to what she was talking about. But nonetheless, aren't we all tired of being lectured at? Now, you can say some people on the left will have the same response. They feel bullied and talked down to by Trump, and he's such a bad man. And we can't even have him because Trump. They just say just Trump. They don't even break down people. It's just Trump. I get it. I get the psyop. I totally get it. Okay. But we had 4 years of Biden, which for all intents and purposes, and it was not good. They let the borders open like a sieve. They had it, an open. Ukraine had an open tab with the taxpayers. Israel jumps in and gets in on the game, and they've got an open tab. I mean, this is not good. So there are things about the administration that we are just not going to be aligned with. At least I'm not, and I'm sure many of you aren't either. What you saw with Biden, you're going to want it. You're going to wish you had 4 years of Biden. There's a reason why Harris has not talked about any of her programs or platforms, except for price controls, which is essentially the beginning of state-sponsored fascism, because the government is getting into the business of business. There is a rumor, and I think a well-founded one, that the Harris administration will be aggressively going after a 44% tax on capital gains. And they may not even be realized, right? So if you sell your house, they're going to take 44% of it. They're going to take 44% of the sale of your house. That's just your house. Anything else, capital gains, your 401ks, anything that is going to help you live out the last 2 decades of your life, that's capital gains. They want 44% of that. And you mix that in with price controls, fuck story, total fuck story, right? And really, when you get to that 44%, you're really entering into CCP territory, where the state becomes the arbiter for the economic agenda, and not just the arbiter, but they're in the middle of it all. And now our economy starts to look a lot like China's economy. And then everything that goes along with China's economy also goes along with this economy, which also includes things like social credit scores and digital currency and the whole nine. Look, we're going to have to face down the digital currency thing, no matter who's in office. Whether it's the Harris group or whether it's the Trump group, right? Trump is being backed by Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and all these, Bitcoin guys and the Silicon Valley mafia. Okay, Harris will have their own version of it. we might see a war between XRP and Bitcoin. I mean, that's a whole different discussion, and I don't want to get caught in the weeds from it. I thought it was also very telling that when the Obamas were done, they left. They didn't stick around. They flew off on their own private jets to separate locations. When COVID happened, I remember it was like a 5 alarm fire going off my brain. And I decided that I was just going to go all in on COVID and do everything in my power to set the record straight and to support people and to be a voice that many people who were disconnected from being able to have a voice because all these other voices were barking at them and tell them to take the goddamn vaccine or put on a mask or whatever. Right? I did it because I was indignant that it would come to this. And I just went all in. And that's where I am now. I'm all in. I'm all in against these people. And whatever happens with the election, that is out of my control. Right? It is out of my control. What is in my control is what I can do between now and then to bring as much attention and to make as much noise as I can in a respectful and yet direct fashion, so that maybe somebody somewhere sees something and it's the first whiff of their wake up moment, right? Their first whiff of their wake up moment. I also think that energetically it's important. I'm not a very good Taoist. John Levi is a really good Taoist. I am not a really good Taoist. I could aspire to be one, and I could probably, with a lot of practice, be non-attached, right? Become young carved block. I think I have a few years for that. So this is what this show's about today. It's really about the light bulb going off in my brain and having this urgency. Or look, and I get it. Trump has issues. There's whatever happens, there's going to be trouble. There's going to be trouble in Dodge. I'll take my chances with Captain Chaos. Okay. I'll take my chances with Captain Chaos versus Kamala and Tim Walz. Because what I saw over the last 4 days was disturbing. Lie after lie after lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. You guys saw it. You watched it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And not only that, but there is no substance. There is no substance to any of it. The only thing that they campaigned on was brand, anti-Trump, and abortion. That's it. Brand, anti-Trump, and abortion, and let's have fun. Let's have a sleepover. Mama let you sleep over. We get to stay up late. And we get to listen to rap music. We get to listen to Beyonce all night and do each other's nails. That's really what's going on. And I'm going to get into a few things that I think are important. By the way, you are going to have an opportunity to call in today. It'll probably be in the second hour. And if you want to vent, get anything off your chest, bring some insight. You got some insight, share some insight. And if you have a different position, you can call in too. I don't care. You can call in as well. And pretty good chance I may not agree with you. Trump is this, Trump is that, and Trump is. I don't want to fucking hear about Trump. I know who Trump is. I know Trump way better than most people do. Not personally, but I've spent hours and hours and hours of time listening to him, studying and looking at his chart. Are you kidding me? I know his warts. I know his strengths. I have gone full cubist with Trump and sort of assembled it together. And he's a very complex character. Very, very complex character. But I'll tell you something. He is not part of that network. He's not part of the network. And that's why they don't want him. Has he done business with them? Sure, he's done business with them. They all do business. Haven't you ever done business with somebody you don't like? I've had clients who are totally woke. I don't care. I just talk about astrology with them. I don't need to force my political beliefs or my meta-spiritual beliefs on those people. They're here for a reason, and we do it. It doesn't happen often, but it's happened. And I keep my mouth shut when they're like alluding to certain things politically. But this is it. This is go time. We need to mobilize our energy. Whatever you do, I don't know. Maybe you want to block walk for Trump. Most people's minds are made up already. By the way, there's a really thin margin in somewhere in the middle that can be moved, right? And I'm probably not going to move those people, but I am going to do everything in my power to address what I believe to be an absolute and utter scam. This is the royal scam, what we're witnessing right here. The Democrats feel betrayed because Trump was president. He was a Democrat, then changed party line. Stephen, my brother, I love you. They don't give a shit about being betrayed. They don't care. They move on. They may miss his money for his campaign donations. I don't think they feel betrayed. And I don't think anybody who is a Democratic voter ever thought to themselves, "Oh shit, we lost Trump." You know what I mean? Oh, we lost Trump. That never happened. I don't think it runs that deep. This is just my point of view. My point of view. Besides, they have George Bush now. It's equaled out. The Federal Reserve is the royal scam. Yes, Joe Potter, it certainly is. It certainly is. Let's see. Wondering about stealing the vote. It seems like it could happen again. So, hi, Fran. Nice to see you. I have thoughts about this. And my thoughts are because things repeat, but they don't. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if something in your life happens and it's kind of a mirror of something that happened before, it's not exactly the same. Something about that thing has changed. Maybe it's the person, place, location, time. There's never a complete carbon copy reprint of an event. So if the vote is going to be stolen, it will not be stolen in the same way that it was stolen, and I can say that. Right? I believe it was stolen. I can say believe it was stolen in 2020. How would they steal it this time? I think there's two possibilities. One is direct and one is indirect. The direct theft would be the deployment of about 6 million new citizens. They could tilt the scales. And all they have to do is show up. Like that's built in. They baked that in. And they could tilt the scales in favor of Harris. That's direct. The indirect stealing of the vote is much more devious in that the Democrats or whoever's behind the Democrats, what they do is they rig up a system. And the system looks like it is gaming the vote, but not for the Democrats. It's for Trump. And then they direct that to whatever third party that they don't like. Russia, Iran, who knows? So Trump wins, but now they find all these voter irregularities. And that's a problem. And it's not Trump that's doing it. So these are the two things. They're not, I would agree, yes. They will err on the side of caution to make sure that they get their red regime in. And it's either going to be the 6 million new votes that suddenly show up, or they reverse it. And I think Jupiter retrograde is interesting at this time because that's when it's going to be happening. Jupiter retrograde on election night, there's something about the reversal, like the roles are reversed. The roles are reversed. So in any case, nobody's going to be happy. There's going to be strife, probably conflict. Would not be surprised if there's continuity of government, and we're off and running. Lisa Ann White says, it'll be interesting to hear what JFK Jr. says today. So if you follow my Twitter feed, one of the things that I talked about yesterday is how RFK Jr. has really trumpeted the results that he experienced by going through Jungian therapy and encountering the shadow and working towards what's called individuation, which is an integration of all these different parts of who you are, some of which are good and some of which are not so good. And in Jung's universe, individuation represents wholeness. And it is a process. And a lot of it has to do with things like dreams, synchronicities, archetypes. It's a quasi metaphysical system unto itself. And if the individual really engages with it, it can be very, very compelling and can also put the individual on a path. And that path, in some cases, is representative of the hero's journey. I believe RFK is on that path. And his relation, I did a lot of work. I did a lot of men's work, probably at an age in my life where, you know, I was green. I was hanging out with these older dudes, and a couple of them were really into Robert Bly, Michael, what's his name? I forget his name. So I'm hanging out with these guys, and they're all like, you know, mostly like 10 years old, 12 years old. But they were cool. We all, you know, we had a few. One guy was about 3 years old. And so I got a taste of that world. I got a taste of the, you know, the, sort of the men's consciousness world. And Robert Bly is he was powerful. And a lot of those men that were part of that movement, again, much of them were older than me. A lot of them were boomers, that they were dealing with grief in their lives. And so Robert Bly would use myths and folk tales. Michael Mead's the other guy. And one of the famous folk tales that Robert Bly would use was Iron John. And that the man, the individual, like had to go into a place to confront this character, Iron John. And then ultimately they would realize that they were Iron John. But it's a very, very interesting and powerful allegory for how men lose themselves. And one of the things that Bly talks about in terms of men losing themselves is their relationship with women. And there's another story that Bly talks about where literally there's a man who's this is a folk, I forget the name, but I'll cut to the chase. Right? The man has to get his testicles back. He's a kept man. And there are certain things that he has to do in order to find his energy again, his true energy. And I believe that that's where RFK Jr. is. That through Cheryl Hines, he is a kept man. And he is, in some ways, chosen a path of security and celebrity. I've looked at their charts. They look like they may have some hot sacks. I've seen their charts. You know, he's like a caveman. He can go a caveman on her. Like, comes home from a hunt, you know, fucking smells like a bear. She runs around the backyard. He tackles her, takes her. Right? I can see them. Little role play. That said, though, she has gotten in the way of his authenticity or his ability to express the fullness of the spirit. And again, in relationship, there's always compromise. There's always a form of compromise in relationship. And there's like daily compromises that are fine. There are other compromises that come up, which are, well, I really want to go to Palm Springs. Well, gee, I really want to go to Florida. One is dry, the other is wet, right? Do you want to lose your marriage or relationship? God damn it, we got to go to goddamn Palm Springs. No, you say, you know what? Let's go to Florida, and we'll go to Palm Springs next time. Like, that's a kind of a medium compromise. But then there are levels in relationship where compromise becomes very, very dangerous. And the balance of relationships hinges upon compromise at a high level. And there are certain points where hopefully most relationships don't have to go to that level. But if they do have to go to that level, then the odds, or what's the word I'm looking for? The reward of facing having to stare that compromise in the eye and saying to oneself, I love you, I understand where you're coming from. This is one area where I cannot compromise. Because if I compromise, then my spirit will be completely compromised, and I will not be able to not only not live with myself, but really be the man, or maybe in some cases the woman, that you want me to be. And I know it may put our relationship at risk, and I'm willing to take that risk. And it would completely, I would experience pain around it. But my spirit ultimately is more important, because there's only one person, one entity that we have to answer to in this lifetime, and that is God. right? That is God. And a lot of times we fall short. And we fall short. And it's like, oh man, I could have done that better. You know, I checked that box and I kind of took the easy way out. And the harder way out would have been more pain. But at the end of the day, it also would have been ultimately more fulfilling. That's where RFK is. He has to make a decision. The allegory I used, and I use the word jewels. Cheryl has his jewels in a ceramic jar hidden behind a mirror. And he has to smash the mirror so that he can reclaim the jewels. Now, what does that look like for RFK? Well, looks like, hey, we're ending the campaign, and we're going to go with Trump. Because we were turned down by the Democrats, and over the last 48 hours, 72 hours, they made me realize that the Democratic Party that my father and my uncle stood for is no longer there. And so therefore I could no longer serve them or represent them. And when I went to them, they were deaf. They didn't want to hear me. You know what? He might have to risk his marriage. He might have to risk his marriage. This is how high the stakes are for that guy. And I don't want to set up a scenario where if he says, well, we're just going to shut down the campaign and we'll continue discussing all our options, because that's probably what will happen. Right? That's probably what will happen. But I believe that if he did that and he made a clear, articulate demonstration of what they're doing and where they're going, and if it does include Trump, that it can fundamentally change the course of this country. I believe that. Not because a bunch of people are going to vote for RFK or vote for Trump. A lot of RFK people don't like Trump. You know, they're just waiting for, you know, some grand old, good old, you know, pro-union, pro-environment Democrat to show up. They're waiting for, you know, Walter Mondale, Hubert Humphrey, Paul Wellstone. Like, that's who they're waiting for, and they're not going to find it. Sorry, you're not going to find it. It's not there. You saw what was there. It is not that. Right? So they're holding out for Kennedy to be that guy. He's not. He can't be that guy. Because he doesn't have a party. That's not his party. So what do I mean by changing the course of America? There's something interesting about a Kennedy-Trump alliance. And I talked about this after, whatever you think of, like, the Trump assassination, whatever you think of it, right? There was something interesting about how Trump gets through that. Old man Kennedy, JFK, RFK don't. And then who calls him right after? RFK Jr. There's something very interesting about this Trump RFK alliance that kind of goes back to the first assassination and this timeline, this Kennedy timeline. We're on this path, and it gets blown up, and whoop, we're off in a different fucking world. Right? And it feels to me like, even if it's just symbolic, that it's important, but that there's something that lives on through that event line to the present that anchors us onto some other track. Now, we know they both feel the same way about Israel, so they should be fine on that. They don't disagree on that, which is unfortunately not a position I hold. But I think it's important. Like, it's important for Kennedy to, it's almost like a breakaway state. Like he's like a breakaway state and moves into this other camp. And I'll tell you what else is important about this. And I will say that in the beginning, when she showed up, I was more than, I didn't take Nicole Shanahan seriously. Okay. I thought, I'm cynical. Kennedy wants somebody who's got the bag. She's got a lot of money. She also has big time connections with Silicon Valley. And if you're looking to somehow fund a campaign, use technology under whatever resources you have, she's a person that you would tap, just like how Trump has tapped J.D. Vance and his connections with Peter Thiel in Silicon Valley. It's a softer, female, more Burning Man version of that. Over time, I have come to respect Nicole Shanahan a lot. And I think the Trump campaign needs her. They need a woman that is connected to that campaign, that is clear and bright and articulate. And if you look into her backstory, she comes from fairly humble means. And she gets the health thing. She gets the food thing. Okay? We need voices like that. It's not really creating a third party, but the potential for having a hybrid is really interesting. And I think if this does happen, and I hope it does, that the people on the Trump side should embrace them. Right? Embrace them. Embrace Nicole Shanahan. Embrace them. Bring them in. Like, don't get fucking hung up that she went to Burning Man. Because, there are all these dyed-in-the-wool dispensationalist Christians that'll make a big fucking deal about it.
Well, she went to Burning Man. Burning Man's satanic.
No, shut the fuck up. Bring her in. Bring her in. You need new voices. You need them. And she is an interesting person. I've been looking at her, right? She's very interesting. There's something fairy-like, and I don't use this word. Here, let's look at her. Maybe you guys can understand what I'm talking about here. There's something kind of fairy-like about her. She kind of reminds me a little of Bjork. Have you guys noticed that? She reminds me a little of Bjork. And I know she's using filters and makeup. This is her that's more natural. But there's something about her that's kind of fairy-like. Right? Even here, she's kind of otherworldly. And she's pretty damn smart too. And then when this has got to be just such a mind fuck for Cheryl Hines, right? Just a total mind fuck. Number one, Nicole Shanahan is younger. Number two, hands down, I don't care like her makeup or filters, and how young Cheryl or good Cheryl Hines may look for her age. Nicole Shanahan's prettier. She's smarter. She's got way more money, right? There's something. Okay, there's something about Cheryl Hines. She's got kind of a fairy quality too, but she's kind of dark. She's got a dark edge. When I look at pictures of her, sometimes she looks predatory. It's like good witch, bad witch. That's what it feels like. I hope it goes in that direction. I really do. I really hope it goes in that direction. The Trump campaign needs more female energy that is good female energy. Anybody that talks about the quality of food and the GMOs and all this other stuff needs to have a voice. It's the Democrats have fucking lost their minds. You know, they never talk about this stuff. They never talk about genetically modified organisms or microplastics or any of this stuff, right? These are the people who are supposed to be looking out for our best interests. When have you ever heard a discussion from a Democrat about that? Never. Very few Republicans. Thomas Massie will have that discussion. I guarantee you'll have that discussion. So that's a voice. We need that voice. So RFK, do the right thing. Smash the mirror. Get the jewels back. Get back on your hero's journey. And let the chips fall where they may. Let's kind of restitch that timeline and let's make a stand, because we have to make a stand. All right, I want to talk about Tim Walz. I have been railing against Tim Walz for about a week now. But and just to let you know, I am an equal opportunity railer. I railed against J.D. Vance for a couple of days. He looks like, you know, a made man. All right, my son just texted me. He said, would you support me beating the brakes off of a kid for talking disrespectful to me? I can't answer him. Because right now I'd say yes. But I'm not sure that's the right answer. I got into JD Vance, right? It's like, how the fuck did he get here? He has the magic path. So it's not like I didn't look at Vance and say, or I looked at him, oh, look at him, he's great. Supports the working class. No, come on. I took the scalpel to JD Vance, and then I took the scalpel to Tim Walz. And of the two, Walz is way worse. Way worse. So I want to play the video from the DNC last night. I put it up on my Twitter feed. I even slowed it down. So I'm going to play this, and I'm going to give you what I think. Well, look at this. Look at this. I just go right in, and here's Nicole Shanahan. This is from TJ Moe's Twitter feed. I really like TJ, by the way. He even responds to my stuff. And this is Nicole Shanahan. And she's on the Adam Carolla show. And let's hear what she has to say. Let me get my earbuds in. Here we go.
The hesitation we have right now in joining forces with Trump is that he has not apologized or publicly come out and said Operation Warp Speed was my fault. It was a failure and I let it happen. I'll never let it happen again.
The vaccinations, right.
I mean, all of it.
Right.
The lockdowns, the letting Fauci and Francis Collins run the show.
Yes.
The firing of the other folks at the NIH and individuals at the CDC that were censored. I mean, there was a lot that happened under Donald Trump's watch that should not have happened.
Yes.
And cannot happen again. And if we are going to put our bet with him, and we have not confirmed anything, but we need absolute assurance that he, this is a tough one. The hesitation we have right now.
I don't blame her. I don't blame her 100%. I'm in, right? Like, I think that's really important. And that's a very difficult conversation for Trump to have. He never admits he's wrong. Never. Okay. And what did TJ say? What did he say? said, I appreciate this. Trump absolutely should come out and admit allowing Fauci the influence he had in the lockdowns were all a huge mistake. He wouldn't lose a single vote over that admission. He gained some. I agree 100%. 100%. He needs to do it. I've said it for a long time. And I've even been softer. Right? It's like, okay, you're going to take credit for it. Whatever. Stop once, do it. Stop once. Don't do victory lap after victory lap. It's insulting. It's insulting to people who want to believe in you and want to cast their vote, right? And more than anything, stand by you so that if somebody is in a debate or you're at a bar at a family dinner or whatever, right? You can fully stand for that person. And you're thinking back, man, I got to defend this motherfucker. He did this shit. I agree with her. I agree with her. I think he needs to. How he does it, there's a script for that. There's a script for it. And the script is, I was under a lot of pressure. This has never happened before. In the beginning, I did my best to stake out a position that was not the one that I ultimately take, which he did, by the way. He would not be lying if he said that, because he did. He talked about hydroxychloroquine more than once. And what happened? He got shot down for that. He wanted to end it. He said, let's go out, get some sunshine, get some air. He wanted to end it. Clearly, he did not either have the support or have the balls to end it. And then the roof caves in, right? And even when Mike Pompeo said it was a drill that went live, and he says, I'm glad you told me, under his breath. And he didn't like Fauci. That was clear. He did not like him. And there was a period of time where I thought he was gone. And Fauci wasn't there for a while. And you could tell that they probably had words. And then, you know who ran Operation Warp Speed? Really? Do you know who ran it? Mike Pence ran Operation Warp Speed. Mike Pence. Look it up. Trump put him in charge of it. It was Mike Pence. Now, Trump, if he wanted to, he could have easily blamed Mike Pence. He could have done it. After it was all said and done, after January 6th, after Mike Pence, took his little fucking piece of silver, and then the first little hint of any kind of disturbance hits the gavel and they're gone. That Mike Pence. That Mike Pence. The guy that sold your ass out, the guy that badmouthed you again and again and again. All you had to do is just say, well, I put Mike Pence in charge of it. And I was leaning heavily on Mike. I trusted him. By the way, Mike Pence brought in Deborah Birx. He brought in Jerome Allen. Both of them worked for him in the state of Indiana. Those were Mike Pence's peeps. I really like Scott Atlas. I'm glad that he finally brought him in. I wish he'd been there from the beginning. I'd like to interview Scott Atlas. I think he's interesting. But he could have blamed it on Pence. Here's what he says. This is what he has to say. I'd like to address Nicole Shanahan and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s statements. And they're right. I could have done things a lot differently. And, I came within an inch of my life. And I've been thinking about a lot of things after that moment. Oh, he's got a past life review opportunity right here. He's fucking lying, WWE. No, he's got an opportunity. And one of the things that I spent a lot of time thinking about was Operation Warp Speed. I did the best I could. I was taking advice from people I probably shouldn't have. And nobody had ever done that before. I did my best to keep the country open. I let different states run their program. And we got through it, and I could have done a lot better. And if we ever have to go through that again, I'm not locking this country down. And I'm not turning the decision-making process over to anybody like Tony Fauci or Tetros or anyone or Bill Gates. We're the ones that are going to decide what happens to this country. That would suffice. That would suffice. And if you manage to throw in, and if there were families out there that were negatively impacted directly or indirectly, I'm sorry for that. Now, could he be open to being sued by people? He's got presidential immunity. He can't be sued. Can't be sued. But I think that kind of a mea culpa would go a long ways. A long ways. And then people say, well, he's only doing it because Nicole and Robert won. Who cares at this point? Right? Who cares? And whenever somebody goes through an apology speech, you know whether or not they're sincere. Right? There's a sincerity meter. And if they're really sincere, you'll get it. And if they're not sincere, you'll kind of get that too. You've seen those apologies written by PR agents. All right, let's look at Tim Walz. Look at that. All right. Let's see. Oh, might be. Hold on, hold on, hold on. All right. So if you haven't seen the movie, The Dead Zone, it's one of the better screen adaptations of a Stephen King novel. One of the reasons it's so good is Christopher Walken, who's able to really convey and portray somebody who's haunted, because I think he is haunted. And there's a scene, he has the ability to be a precog, but his precog moments are not happy, happy sunshine. And there's this precog moment about this president who is going to start a nuclear war. It's so funny that the nuclear war was the boogeyman. Like, oh, we're going to get a president. He's going to be insane and mad. He's going to press a button and we're all going to die. Like, the model for that has changed so much. Right? It's like this monolithic moment. And there's somebody who's so evil and consumed with power that just with one little finger, they end the world. And we know that the world is ended by 100,000 paper cuts. That's how it ends. 100,000 paper cuts. And then the planet is sliced and bleeding everywhere. And there are people who, in positions of leadership and power, greenlight the paper cuts. Most of them are intentional. Some of them are unintentional because people are just so ill-equipped to lead and perform any sort of reasonable administrative function. You're going to get the arbitrary paper cut every now and then. But it doesn't end in a nuclear flash. It's 100,000 paper cuts. But this is the model for what I'm talking about. And it's in this movie, The Dead Zone, where the presidential candidate, Martin Sheen, how many times has he fucking run for president or been president in a movie or on TV? He should have just been a president. Let's take a look at this. Most people won't see it this way, but Waltz's angry and scowling tug is a lesser version of the dead zone moment. So there's a sniper, and Martin Sheen, his character, divulges his lack of character. That he is going to use the child as a shield, and his maniacal rise to the top of an American president based on the everyman comes to an abrupt and chilling halt. Let's look at Mr. Waltz. So this is what we saw yesterday. Coach Waltz. Coach Waltz. So he's coach. You may want to rethink that coach moniker, because there's an October surprise that has been rumored that quite possibly could sink Coach Waltz, which I'll talk about. Let's just say you wouldn't want to be associated with any other coaches, if you know what I mean. All right, here we go. All right. Jerks his hand. You see that? You guys have seen this. He jerks his back. And look at the faces. Look at his fucking face. This guy is not happy at all. His wife looks down in shame. Like she's got the walk of shame. And then when it's all over, look at his wife. Does she look triumphant? Does she look like, oh, I'm so happy to be here? She's like, oh, look at that look. Look at him. He's got that scowl. He's got that scowl. And look at her. She's just so checked out. She's fucking checked out. Look at her. Yeah. You really want these people to be calling shots for your country? I'm not talking about these two. I'm talking about, look, I know she theoretically took in the burning of the city of Minneapolis during George Floyd, supposedly. But she almost feels like she's a hostage. She feels like she's a hostage. And when they were up there with Kamala and Doug, he went to fucking shake her hand. All right, so I slowed this thing down. And if we go to 25, this is like the News of Bruder film. They come out slow. Now, somebody said to me, well, he didn't want his son to hit the teleprompter. Okay. Well, let's go back and look at that. Let's slow it down. All right. The kid gets hit with a flash of light right there. Okay? And she gets it. He gets it. So somebody's taking a picture, or there's a video camera with a light on it. Now, once he gets his eyes off the light, he begins to bring his head down. You see that? And if you look at the teleprompter, man, there's some space between that teleprompter and his head. Right? He's already adjusting. He gets hit with this light, it grabs his attention, grab anybody's attention, right? Grabs his attention right here. And then he's already ducking under the light. Look at him, right? You can see here, right there. He's already ducking, and he's got room. And this woman, she's like, oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. And then there's the yank. Unmistakable, right? He jerks him. He's nowhere even near the fucking teleprompter. And then I started to talk about the scowl, and the same person gave him a pass on the scowl. Okay, well, I proved to you that the teleprompter moment was wrong. And now you're going to go after my scowl comment. Okay. Does this look to you like a vision of a loving family? Does it? Watch her. Watch that left hand. Now I'll tell you who's digging it is the daughter. The daughter is into it. Like the daughter is totally into it. She's the one that passed on the information about there not being any police presence during the George Floyd riots. Right? She thought she was hip. She was cool. This is her big moment, man. This is her fucking Taylor Swift moment. Here you go. I feel sorry for the boy. And when I heard that he had issues, right? When I heard he had issues, I thought to myself, well, how did he get those issues? Let's ask the question. He has what? A learning disability and a few other things. Where did my head go? My head went to that motherfucker beat the shit out of him. That's what happened. Right? That's what happened. And then that's the thought I had. And gets up there and pulls his arm out of the socket. You can't unsee that. Can't unsee it. Tim Walz is the most phony motherfucker. He's phonier than Mike Pence. He's phonier than Mike Pence. I swear to you. Mike Pence, what did you get with Mike Pence? He was like cold as ice. He was cold as ice, claimed to be a Christian, used to be a homosexual, maybe trafficked in a little chicken hawking. But that's kind of who Mike Pence was. This guy portrays himself to be something completely different. Right? Like Mike Pence flatlined. I didn't trust him. But this guy is using all this emotional energy to get people to buy into America's Dad or Coach Waltz. Right? He's using all this energy, which for me is completely disingenuous, and you're messing with the forces of nature. Mike Pence never did that. Oh, Mike Pence might invoke God or whatever, right? Because he was one of these Catholic charismatics. But he never stooped to the level of pandering that Tim Walz has. Never. All right, so here's the rumor. It's a rumor. It's not a fact. It's a rumor. There is a rumor that there is a tape of Tim Walz with Jerry Sandusky. It's a rumor, and I have to qualify that. It's a rumor, and supposedly they being the Trump campaign are in possession of the tape. What does that mean? Jerry Sandusky was a football coach at Penn State. And he was bringing young boys into the locker room and the showers at Penn State. And there are people who will try to dispute this, and they'll go out of their way to say that Jerry Sandusky was framed, yada yada yada, right? There are witnesses. So who were the boys? There was a foundation called Second Mile. And Second Mile was started by Penn State alums. And they would take these young boys who were single moms, raise these young boys. And then what they would do is that they would bring them through this alumni group and have these mentor situations at Penn State. And Jerry Sandusky was a part of that. And that's how they got the young boys. It was through this Second Mile. Graham Spanier, who was the president of Penn State, again, you'll get blowback from this. Certain people say, well, this is not. Graham Spanier was a part of this. He had to step down from Penn State. If Graham Spanier was not a part of it, he would have defended his honor, and he would have said, "This, I didn't do this. I didn't. You know, if this happened, I was clearly not aware of it. I stand for this institution. All these people should be punished, right?" But he doesn't do that. Graham Spanier steps down. Why does he step down? Because what could happen would be worse. So Jerry Sandusky is a football coach. What is Tim Waltz? Tim Waltz is a football coach. And while he's not a college coach, Tim Waltz did coach high school football. And I guarantee you that somewhere in that mix, some of Tim Waltz's kids had recruiting visits. And the rumor is that this happened in Minnesota. And it was, I think, what do they call Gopher Stadium or whatever. But Sandusky's involved. And this is a rumor. I'm just telling you it's a rumor. You say, well, why are you telling it's a rumor? Because I have to tell you. And if it doesn't happen or whatever, fine. Right? But apparently the recording on the tape is quite graphic. And if that's true, then they got issues. Big time issues. And do I think it's not true? Based on everything I've seen about Tim Waltz, I would say that it is more likely true than not true. And even if it doesn't exist, that man should be nowhere near any kind of public administration. Sorry, not sorry. And we haven't even talked about Harris yet. So in about 10 minutes, I'm going to open all this up. And you guys can call in and you can vent and you can agree, disagree, whatever. But let me show you something. So one of the things that we have been bombarded with in this country, I don't see a lot of foreign commercials, but I would assume it's probably the same. One of the things that we've been bombarded with in this country is the mixed race couple phenomenon. Like, how many times have we seen variations of these commercials? Right? How many times have we seen it? You cannot find a commercial. It's very rare where it is you'll find black commercials. Sometimes you'll find white commercials, but not nearly as much as you will find a version of this. And it goes both ways. They're equal opportunity when it comes to spreading the love, right? Equal opportunity. So what does this mean? And why does it matter? It's programming. It's programming. Why? Because that's how it works. They program ahead of time so that you can accept this. They program ahead of time so you can accept this. Tim Walz, Kamala Harris are the version of the mixed race couple that you've been inundated with for the last decade. They're preparing you. And they all seem so fucking happy. What is this gaping mouth thing with Walz? Like, he doesn't really smile. Oh, he's smiling there. He's usually got this giant gaping. It's either the giant gaping Barney smile or the frown. Oh, look at me. Look, she looks so tough. From Midwestern dads to Brooklyn gays, the Harris Waltz Camelot hat is this summer's must-have item. How many of you guys have purchased that? I have nothing against mixed race couples. I have a beef with programming. Okay, so wide-ranging last hour. Covered a lot of stuff. Covered Kennedy, Nicole Shanahan, Trump, mea culpa, gaining power, female voice, right? We dipped our toe into the poison waters of the Waltz Harris world and looked at Waltz in his, I think, real dead zone moment. And Harris will continue to raise the roof, make things fun, make things happy, happy, joy. And I don't know if and when they're debating, but when Trump debates her, so watching Tucker last night, I actually watched part of the last night, part of this one. Tucker was on with Jason Whitlock, and Tucker was very candid, and he said things that Jason Whitlock wasn't prepared for. First of all, Tucker said that he thought Willie Brown was really funny because Tucker's from California. He knows Willie Brown. And he said to Jason, you'd actually like him. I was like, really? Yeah, he said, oh my God, he's so funny. And then Tucker has been saying the exact same thing that I've been saying for a long time. I did a show with Russ about a year ago, and Russ is a great, great researcher, and Russ is fearless, right? And Russ said, "Oh, Kamala's such a dingbat, she can't put together a sentence." I said, "It's an act. It's an act. She's actually really smart, and she's just mailing it in." So really, yep, mailing it in. And when people were talking about, who's going to be the candidate? Is it going to be Newsom? Is it going to be Michelle? Is it going to be Hillary? No, it's going to be Kamala Harris. And I was pretty clear about that for two reasons. One, you could not replace her with another. You could not replace her with a white woman. You could not do it. The Democratic Party would lose their fucking mind, specifically like the Yas Queens. They would lose their minds. Couldn't do it. You certainly couldn't put a male in there. Now, you might get away with like Michelle Obama, maybe Tammy Duckworth. Tammy Duckworth, you get a threefer with Tammy Duckworth, fourfer. Tammy Duckworth, mixed race, woman, vet, amputee. Based on that alone, boy, she wins the presidential Special Olympics for a candidate. I'm serious. Too bad she's not very bright. And they had thought about her like the last go round when Biden was running. They had thought about Tammy Duckworth as a no, it's Kamala all along. Why do you think she was on the ticket with him? That was the. They wanted Kamala in 2020. They wanted her then. And if it wasn't for Tulsi Gabbard, pulling a Night Ranger move on her, she probably would have just gone through the polls, and they would have done what they normally do, which is hit her polls with steroids, and then people fucking drop out, and now they've got the Kamala candidate. But Tulsi Gabbard got in the way of that. All right, I'm putting in the link here. If you want to jump on the show, we'll do about a half an hour worth of calls. You just get in. Make sure you have a mic. There's a mic prompt. Make sure that you either have headphones or there's like a little link there for some sort of that you're not echoing your call. Okay. And so it's there. It's in the chat. So if you want to join and you want to talk about this, you want to vent, you want to get something off your chest, if you have an insight that you want to bring to the table, if you disagree, you can call, whatever. The line's there. And we'll keep this going for calls or appearances for about a half an hour. Okay? All right. Man, what is it, 70 days? We have 70 days until this election. And so much can happen over the course of that time. Like, so much. Like, freaking high strange can happen. I've been following this guy, Michael O'Keefe, who has a Twitter feed, and he has all these drone pictures from Ireland and all these camps that are set up. Right? These are camps for supposed refugees. These are military camps. You can see what's happening in Germany. By the way, I was looking at some of these soldiers that they're using to go into homes in Germany and rouse people for wrongthing. And let me just show you what I came across. Let's see this. Hold on. I hope I can find it. Hold on a second. Looking. And I got a lot of stuff on Waltz. All right. So let me show you this. This is from Germany. I want you guys to take a look at this. Are these Germans? Are these Germans? I don't think these are Germans. This guy, and this guy, they look Asian. I don't know about this guy. Would Germans do this to their own people? I don't think so. Maybe some would, but I don't think so. This was kind of this was disturbing in general, but that was really disturbing. When I kind of look at them, these guys don't look right, and I don't think Germans would turn on their people. Maybe some would, but not all of them. You'd have to have a select psychopathic bunch. They'd have to fail a lot of fucking psych tests in order to, be employed to do those things. So the outgrowth of that, I'm going to show to you. I believe it is the drone shot from Michael O'Keefe over in Ireland. So I can find that. I forget which one of these had the. I forget which one of these had the comment, but I thought it was a salient comment, and the comment was, the only thing that is standing between global tyranny, which is really, we're like this close from the attack dogs, which might include, by the way, the robot dogs, being unleashed. The only thing that stands between that happening, and by the way, this is a scintilla of a hope and a belief, is Donald Trump. That's it. And that's what these people in places like Ireland and Germany are thinking. Because they know that if the US falls even further, because it has not fallen completely. Contrary to popular belief, it has not fallen completely. But if it falls even further, then the rest of the world is entirely fucked. And they're almost entirely fucked as it is. Right? And I understand they have no political power whatsoever. Not that we have a ton either, right? Like, we just don't have a ton of political power. That got lost a long time ago. But here we are, 70 days. We were at the precipice of something that could be absolutely devastating for this country. And I know the astrology as well that's coming. And it's going to happen regardless of who's elected. And I wish I could be a good Taoist, but I can't. So I'm dedicating all my energy for the next 70 days to call out these people to the best of my ability. And I hope you join me in this so that if and when the day comes, you'll at least know that you stood up for something, right? You stood up for an ideal, or you stood up for your children or your grandchildren, because you know that world is saying the same thing, right? They have the same buy-in. And again, this is not a wholesale endorsement for Donald Trump. It is a wholesale rejection of what's coming. And I'll deal with whatever Trump brings to the table if he gets there. Because I know what they're capable of. They ruined California, a state that I grew up in. And it was a lovely place. And we all got along. And people were able to make a living. And they fucking ruined it. They ruined California. And they're going to Californicate the rest of the country. And through their allegiance with China, they'll sell out. Then if they blend with Team Obama and you get Eric Holder and Rahm Emanuel and Gavin Newsom and all, it's like the fucking, the league of, evil superstars. That's what you're looking at. You're looking at the league of evil superstars, and then they join forces. It's like Hydra, right? That's what's coming. And maybe they'll devour each other along the way, which would be great. I'd take that. But we had 8 years of Obama, and it was terrible. It was terrible. I just remember that time. And it was every day for me was depressing. And I was trying to always find something I could kind of grab onto, right? But it was just fucking depressing. The race stuff kicked in. It was shit. It was just total shit. It tore up, friendships, people I knew on Facebook. Never recovered from it. They activated race in order to divide the country. Terrible, right? Started taking the military apart. Fired generals, fired admirals, replaced them with lesser copies of themselves. It was a brutal time. Trump was hard, but it was different. The last 4 years, Biden, compared to those 8 years of Obama, I mean, we had to go through Libya, right? The whole Libya thing. We came, we saw them, we killed them. Right? That was all in Obama world. So that's it. That's where I'm at. That's my declaration of independence. And you don't have to share my same passion around it. But if you do, then all hands on deck. Right? And there's creative ways. There are creative ways to hack the system. You don't have to go out and choke a motherfucker, right? You can be very creative, and you can, kind of reality hack. You can reality hack the system. Anyway, I guess nobody wants to come on. I guess we're done with that. All right, let me talk about the event before we get out of here. So I went down to the hotel. More of you have got rooms. Thank you. Thank you for doing it. I appreciate it. And I'm going to load up a little video over on Locals. I did a little tour of the hotel. It's a nice tour. and we're moving forward. And I really, you know, in the back of my brain, I'm thinking, God, what could happen? You know, what could happen? You know, could there be a monkeypox? Could they lock shit down? It's like, fuck it, fuck it, fuck it. Right? Let's go. Let's do this. Let's get together. Let's reinforce our spirit. Let's have fun. Let's learn. Mario's coming. Right? He's got all kinds of magic he's going to bring to the table. DJ Pebblestone's going to spin. I'll present. I'm trying to do something with our friend Jock Doubleday. Little added bonus. So it may not be on the scale of other years, but you know, hey, it's a quality, not always quantity. So please, there's a link. You can sign up. I believe that the hotel has lowered the rates of the room as well. So you may want to take advantage of that. Okay, Mercury goes direct on Thursday. Let's make a push. Let's get out here. Let's have some fun. Let's learn some things, and let's enliven our spirits. All right, we got somebody came in, John Lyons. Let's say hi to
How's
John.
it going, man? Hey, I want to ask you a little question about astrology in general. I recently
Okay.
just moved, and what's interesting is that my ascendant, where I was from, I was somewhere around that Wisconsin, it's in Capricorn. And I recognize that the South Node in Virgo, I got a really dark thing. You'll be basically trining the South Node in Virgo. The place that I moved to New England, it's actually trining my North Node. When you move, is it necessarily a bad thing to have, you know, an aspect trine the South versus North Node? I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Well, wouldn't it trine both nodes, because the nodes don't move, right? There's always going to be a trine. Well, one would be a trine, and one would be the other side. The opposite would be a sextile, right? Like,
right. Do the degrees
yeah.
matter?
So
or?
you said it's trine. Somewhat, but you know, depends. Like if you're somewhere between 2 and 7, I think you're in the neighborhood,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
Saturn is trining your true node. Okay, and then the other location was more of a connection with your south node. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's right. I was saying my ascendant. My ascendant in Wisconsin is trining. Well, I noticed it's in Capricorn, and I just got a really gnarly feeling about the upcoming transit in Virgo. I just had a bad feeling, so I moved into my wife's house.
Yeah.
She has a house in New England, and it's the same degree, pretty much, ironically enough. But it's trining my North Node, which is in Libra. It's in Aquarius in New England, and so I'm just wondering.
Oh, okay. So your ascendant is Aquarius in New England.
Yes, and my North Node's in Libra. I'm a South Node Aries, North Node Libra.
South node Aries,
North Node
Libra. Okay.
Yeah.
North node Libra. All right. So what degree is the ascendant in that area?
I believe, well, the ascendant, I believe it's the one, I can't remember the number, but it's where the eagle turns into a flag. So the flag turns into an eagle. That's what I look up the.
So that's the Sabian symbol for it?
Yes.
All right. So let me just look at it real quick. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. So we have Sabian symbols right here. All right. So that would be Aquarius 9. A flag is seen turning into an eagle. Yeah. So let's talk about Capricorn versus Aquarius as an ascendant. They're different, right? Like the approach is just different in general. So Capricorn ascendant is all about endurance. It's all about self-sufficiency, maturity, responsibility, right? All those lovely things that we love about Capricorn. You get to demonstrate them on a personal level. Aquarius is really different. So Aquarius on the ascendant is much more free-spirited, much more revolutionary in a lot of ways. Much more, to some degree, it can be reactionary. It's interesting. So now you go from being ruled by Saturn to being ruled by Uranus. And if you have a true node in Libra, And if it's trining your ascendant, I think it would be good, because that means that you would have relationship and contact and contract with people who would understand you.
You know, it's kind of
Right.
funny you say that, because like New England, at least the area that I'm in, I'm actually a web designer. I do a lot of IT stuff. There's a
Yeah.
lot more opportunities in my area. Like I literally have gotten like so many more interviews than I was in the Midwest. You know, and it just makes sense. You know, and that's
Yeah.
one of the things I want to bring up too, Robert. It's interesting you're mentioning with Saturn Aries and everything. What do you think about the whole like grand solar minimum and like Earth changes? Because there's been a lot of weather changes happening over the globe. And I'm just hearing your thoughts. Like, supposedly, I mean, I was just reading and doing some research that the main weather events, I think, will kick off between really now and 2028. What are your thoughts on, you know, astrology and weather changes?
Well, I mean, let's look at Pluto, right? Like, I think Pluto is a really big factor culturally, historically, and I guess we could even say like ecologically. And so now Pluto is in Aquarius. And what do we think of with Aquarius? Well, we think of the water bearer and you know, whatever descends from the heavens. But Aquarius and Uranus have a reputation for being cold, right? Like it is a cool sign. It is a winter sign, right? It starts in late January and goes through basically mid-February. So if you're looking at a grand solar minimum, which is the opposite of, you know, global warming, grand solar minimum is cold, right? We move into an ice age, essentially a mini ice age. And, you know, what you really want to do is you want to live somewhere, you know, below the 33rd degree parallel, right? So I would say if you were to look for an astrological correlation with the grand solar minimum, it would be Pluto and Aquarius. That's what I would think, right? Now, Saturn and Neptune are getting ready to conjunct. And it's a very interesting conjunction. It's rare when we see two planets move like that in unison. And when we think of Aries, we think of something that's really hot, right? Like Aries is fire and it's passion and temper and all those things ruled by Mars. But I think there's also the potential for first of all, a heating effect and then a cooling effect. Because Saturn sits on top of Aries and it does not allow the fire to burn, right? Like it doesn't allow the fire to burn. Neptune is watery, right? So Neptune in Aries is watery. And so I feel like that period, in fact, I'm going to go on a show in about an hour with Miriam Hanane, and I'm going to talk about, you know, what I've sort of loosely labeled the molten years. And the molten years are this 3-year cycle with Saturn and Neptune and Aries, where things get very molten. Like things get heated up and they're very liquid, right? And then there's a cooling. Like there's a cooling phase after that. And that cooling phase, I believe, it corresponds with Saturn and Taurus, which comes in around 2029. So you have Pluto and Aquarius, which is cold. You have this kind of molten effect, which things get sort of redistributed in some ways. Like nothing is really settled, right? Nothing is settled, and it looks as though things are melting in some ways, right? And then what happens is then the cooling effect comes into play, and then we have Saturn and Taurus, and we have the new land, the new Earth. And I always felt like it was really interesting because Saturn goes into Taurus in roughly 2030, right?
Yeah.
Like there's, you know, right. So you have what? Agenda 2030. And that's that. I think that's, you know, what these globalists, the plutocrats, whatever, you know, they chose that date, 2030, because that's the new land. Like that is the new land.
You know what's really interesting too, Robert? I think that next year there will be some elements of like control of the system, because in Chinese, if you look at the years, we're in a wooden dragon, you have a wooden snake. And of course, snake is a cult year. Like that's, I believe, where real people would show themselves. That's like a snake oilsman, you know. And then the following year, ironically, in 2026, when the South goes into Leo, that's also the year of the fire horse. And I think if that's where, like, you know, like
fire horse, man, that is notorious year.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Notorious.
Yeah, it's really, really wow. Well, thank you. Like that actually helped clarify a lot of things, because, you know, I just feel for me, I mean, I always like to go off what feels lighter for myself. And like
Yeah.
you said, I think having a trine on the North Node in any planet is a very favorable aspect because it's where you want to go. If you wanted to clear up like karmic past stuff, maybe it might be beneficial to have things try the South Node. I used to think that the North Node was always good and the South Node was bad, but the South Node is more of an acceptance of who you are. Again, I have Saturn over my South Node. Like I was a very, very powerful person in a past life. And every single time I've tried to rely upon, like help from people, whatever, like structures, it always backfires me. And so it's kind of a letting go of, not status, but people, you know what I mean, with connections, stuff like that, and just finding your own path. Like that's kind of like, I guess, my nodal lesson is,
Yeah.
just align myself.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you understand your trajectory, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
The challenge with the North Node is that it's the unknown. It's the unknown country. People are like, oh man, I don't know. The South Node thing feels much more familiar. I know it. I get it. I understand it. But that's not where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right. It's not where you're supposed to be. And if you try to live your life from the South Node, it's not going to work.
Oh, trust me. You know what's a parable, by the way, Robert? I will end on this before we go off. I like to think of it, society as general, as this. Over the coming years, I like to think of it, when a butterfly when a caterpillar merges into a butterfly, it goes into a cocoon. And the more that the caterpillar cells try to resist, the easier it is for the butterfly cells to take over. And so eventually what happens is the more it resists, it morphs into a butterfly. And that's society as a whole. The more we try to cling on to past struggles and just, it's going to backfire. Again, like you said, I think when the whole lockdowns and NWO stuff happens, it's going to backfire in ways you can't expect. And I agree with that. I think Pluto Aquarius is going to be very, very helpful and amazing. Because it's like watching a time fused bomb. You have no way it's going to go. So that's the way I see it, But
Well, John, I'm glad you brought up the caterpillar to the butterfly, because you have the chrysalis, right? You have the chrysalis moment, and that's a really good metaphor for this idea of the molten years, right? That everything becomes sort of hot and liquid and kind of formless in some ways, right? It's just like what happens inside that chrysalis. There's this this kind of like molten experience between this one being and this other being that's about to emerge, right? And I feel like that 3-year period that we're looking at is very reminiscent of that. So thanks for that. I may even use that when I do my guest appearance on the show. Thank you.
And finally, I want to end on a final note, a happy note. What do you see about the astrology if going on beyond the 2030s and 40s? Like, do you see like freedom? Do you see parallel realities? Do you see more, control? Or what? If you were to say go into the farther future, like from the 2035 onward, what would you say it looks like astrologically wise? From like 2035 to 2050, let's just say that, to around when Pluto ends,
Well, I think that once we see Pluto return to Aries, I'm not sure that our story exists here much more.
I agree.
Like we're done. We've done the cycle, right? And whether it's we like ascend or whatever, right? Like okay, so if we go around the wheel, let's just go around the wheel. We're leaving Pluto in Capricorn for the final time, right? And come December, January, we're full on Pluto in Aquarius. Socially, planetarily on the wheel, that means a lot, right? It means a lot because now we're into this kind of more collective place, this group place. We depend on each other more, right? Moving away from systems of government, systems of authoritarian control. And then when Pluto moves into Pisces, we move into the 12th house. And the 12th house is where you leave the chart, right? Like when you pass away, when you've lived your life, when you retire, you go to the 11th house and you hang out with your friends and you play pickleball and, you do all those things that you do. And eventually you can't do it anymore And then you wind up going to a 12th house situation, whether it's
Huh.
a hospital or a hospice or whatever. And then you leave the world. You leave the chart and you leave the world. And I think that there's something to that with this Pluto in Pisces transit. And that to me represents a time of evacuation from this reality. Whatever that means. It could mean we're on a different timeline. You know, it could mean that we beam up to some other place. Maybe it's Elon Musk's wet dream and we go to another planet. Like, it's over. It's over. And when Pluto goes into Aries, this is just my thought. The Pluto goes into Aries, whatever happens here in this world, I don't think we really play a large role in it, if any at all.
It's interesting you say that because there's this one thing, I don't know the name of it, but are you familiar, Robert? Every 15 years, there's like a sign atop the sign. What I mean is, right now we're in the Gemini phase, which is from 2010 to 2025, and then Cancer happens next year. And of course, that's when everything, is depressing, from 2025 until 2040. And that makes it perfect because 2040 to 2055 would be in Leo, which is when, if you were to say, we would theoretically could be more loving and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's a very, very fascinating thing. Yeah. Well, listen, Robert, I really appreciate your talk. That actually gave some really interesting tidbits. And yeah, I think you are probably one of the best astrologers I've ever listened to. I've listened to you all the time, and I wish you well, man. Thank you.
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate it. Thanks for calling in. And there are a lot of really excellent astrologers in this world, and I would say that there are astrologers that are better than I am. I don't have a problem saying that at all. But one of the things that I have a passion for is connecting astrology to our story, and I'd like to think I do a pretty good job of that. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Have a good one, Robert. Thank you.
You too. Bye bye. All right, so it looks like the old StreamYard freeze has happened, and it means that we've come to the end of the show, either by design or Deus Ex Machina. I'll be on with Miriam Hanane in about 45 minutes. So if you haven't gotten tired of hearing me talk, you can go on, hang out over there, and we'll see what happens. Okay. Take care, mods. Thank you. We'll see you on Sunday night. I'm going to try to get Elsa on here on Sunday night. Looks like her identity has been stolen by AI. There's an AI astrologer with her story. So I'm going to bring her on if she's into it. We're going to talk about it. And that's it. Take care. Sign up for the event. Get a hotel room. Let's hang out. Bye for now.